Hello everyone, Tmmgamer, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you another one of my Football Talk videos, the series where I have a bit of a chat about real life football, be it internationally or domestically, and there are a couple of topics I want to try and cover in this video. One of them specific to the Champions League that happened this week, and I know I talked a little bit about the Champions League yesterday in my live commentary, so if you guys haven't checked that out, my previous video as always is linked on the first line of the description. You can find that there if you're interested. But it's something I wanted to expand on, and then the second topic, if we get enough time, is something a little bit more generic about the Premier League this season. So let's dive straight in and talk about FC Bayern, because there's no doubt FC Bayern are an absolutely world-class side. They have some of the best players in the world. In my opinion, they've got the best midfield in the world. The midfield of Bayern is just ridiculously talented. It's insane how many world-class players they can pull out and put into that midfield. But the way they played, most notably yesterday against Real Madrid, but also quite apparent throughout their Champions League run, was very, very frustrating for me. And just to illustrate this, I'm going to run you through a couple of stats for, well, one stat really, the most important one, which is the possession stat. FC Bayern kept 72% of the ball at the Bernabeu on Wednesday night, and 80% in the first half. 80% possession in a Champions League semi-final is insane. That is a ridiculous amount of possession. But the problem was they didn't do anything with that possession. They did absolutely nothing with the ball on Wednesday night, Bayern Munich. It was really, really frustrating. And Real Madrid, in that first half, they had 4 clear-cut chances with only 20% of the ball. And this has been a little bit of a bugbear for me for a long, long time. It's this aimless passing. Now, passing and possession is always going to be an important part of football. If you don't have the ball, you can't score a goal. That's just the most basic thing about it. It's very, very obvious. But the problem comes where you keep the ball for the sake of keeping the ball. And that's something I find incredibly frustrating to watch, both in real life and on FIFA, because you see some people, and again, the guy I played yesterday in my live commentary had that, where he just passed the ball alongside his own penalty area for no reason. It ended up costing him a goal and ended up costing him the game in the end. And that's basically what Bayern Munich did yesterday. And Pep Guardiola's come out and defended his tactics, saying, since I was a player, Real Madrid have basically been a counter-attacking team. Of course, if they'd wanted the ball, it would have been an end-to-end game. Sometimes in football, you hear that we should play more vertical, but I think in that situation, Madrid are unstoppable. They are the best counter-attacking team in the world. They have legs, they are athletes. They are football players, but mainly athletes. I am proud of my team. They fought well against a tough opponent, one of the best in the world. We had a good game, and I hope we will improve further next week. I did not want to have a typical German game of back and forth. I wanted a lot of possession, and we managed that in parts, but we did not finish our chances well. And this was backed up a little bit by Arjen Robben, who went as far to say that, Madrid were dominated by Bayern, and I understand the idea behind that. There's no doubt Madrid, their primary strength is counter-attacking. If you have a look at that side, you've got players like Ronaldo, obviously the main example, but you've got Gareth Bale, you've got Di Maria, you've got so many talented midfield players who like to get the ball down and hit those killer balls. They are undeniably very, very strong on the counter-attack, and keeping the ball is a great way to deal with that. If you keep the ball and have a high possession stat, that's fine. Possession isn't something I'm against. Obviously, if you can keep 70% of the possession and win a game, you should. But what I don't like is the possession for the sake of possession, and that's what Bayern Munich had yesterday. They kept a huge amount of the ball, and they did absolutely nothing with it. And like I mentioned earlier, Real Madrid had 20% of the ball in the first half and created 4 clear-cut chances, and Bayern had 80% and created no clear-cut chances. And for me, I think Pep Guardiola has actually taken Bayern backwards, because Bayern Munich's strength has always been as a direct team. And I don't mean, lump it forward, but I mean they'll get the ball wide quickly to their wingers. They'll have very, very attacking fullbacks, Alaba and Lahm, bombing forward. They'll exploit the flanks, and then they'll get Robben and Ribery to run at the opponent's fullbacks to get people to miss tackles, and that'll create space. And then they've got a great striker in Mandzukic, and they've got an unbelievable midfield. You've got Muller, you've got Goetze, you've got Schweinsteiger, you've got Martinez. These guys will get on the ball, they'll impose themselves, they'll create a host of chances, and their great goal-scoring midfielders, their wingers, and their talented front line will get a lot of goals. that has gone from their play recently. The game at Manchester United, when Manchester United were away at Bayern Munich, when Guardiola, for reasons unknown to humanity, decided to play David Alaba and Philippe Lahm in midfield in this really weird formation where they basically played as central midfielders, but it was just so strange. It was really, really, really strange because it removed one of the core techniques and one of the key strengths of Bayern Munich, which is their incredible fullbacks. And for me, Philippe Lahm is the best fullback in the world. He really is incredibly talented, and I can't understand why you'd play him in central defensive midfield. He's an incredibly technically gifted footballer, there's no doubt about that, but he is an astonishingly good fullback. Astonishingly good. And I could understand if Bayern Munich's midfield wasn't very good and they had to play him in there to help the rest of them out. But we are talking about here the best midfield in the world, and I don't think it's arguably the best anymore. I think it is just the best midfield in the world. They are just exceptionally gifted midfielders. There is no need for Philippe Lahm to play in that position for Bayern Munich. There just isn't. And this is, I think, why Guardiola, for me, is an overrated manager. Because he has taken Bayern Munich backwards through his incessant and unnecessary tinkering. It's unnecessary. Under Jupp Heynckes, when they won the Champions League, Bayern, and they won the treble for the first time in German football history, let's not forget that. How did they do that? They did it through, like I mentioned, great wide play. They did it through their midfielders getting on the ball. They'd always have 55, 60, 65% of the possession, but they were always looking for an end product. They weren't just knocking the ball around midfield for no reason. It was always with an end product in mind. And I feel that this has been really, really seriously lost by Bayern Munich this season. It's been very, very disappointing for me to watch them, because I always loved watching Madrid and Bayern Munich a lot more than I did watching Barcelona. I mean, if I'm going to say the best club side in the world in the last 10 years, I'm probably still going to lean towards Guardiola's Barcelona, because technically speaking, they were astounding. They were brilliant. No doubt about that. I mean, they had Xavi and Iniesta in their prime, mostly Xavi. Iniesta still a tremendous player, but they had Puyol when he was still a top quality centre back. They had Lionel Messi when he just burst onto the scene, and everyone realised that, hang on, this guy is special. He's not just an excellent player, he's one of the best players we've ever seen. And they had that passing, they had the great style, but it was always with an end product in mind. And then Guardiola, the season after they won that Champions League, their first one, for some reason played a 3-4-3. So they lost the shape that helped them dominate Europe for no reason. And I mentioned this in my live commentary yesterday, but the season after they won that Champions League title so convincingly and absolutely murdered Manchester United in the final, they only played the 11 that won them that game, I think it was 3 times in the next season, which is just lunacy. It really is. When you have found a formula that is so effective, I mean, this is not a formula which is bad as well. It's not like they were stoking it to victory. They were playing glorious football. They were keeping the ball, but they were keeping the ball in such a way to create chances. And I feel like he always takes it too far, Guardiola. It's like that false 9 formation that we saw with Spain as well. That false 9 formation is just... it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The only reason Spain won games with that false 9 is because they had by far the best team on the pitch. And it was just the possession for the possession's sake argument again. It's not only is it, I think, unsuccessful, it's incredibly boring to watch. I mean, the technical ability required to pull that off is astronomical, of course it is. And I appreciate the skill, but I don't enjoy watching it. I'd much rather watch Real Madrid than a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich under Guardiola, because Madrid are always exciting. There's always a fast, pacey winger on the ball, or Ronaldo running at 5 players, and it's always edge-of-your-seat stuff. With Bayern Munich at the moment, it's Schweinsteiger's on the ball. He passes it to Lahm, who's playing central defensive midfielder for no reason. Back to Alaba, back to Schweinsteiger, to Martinez. It's gone forward to Goetze. Oh, they're going to move forward? No, they're moving back now. It's incredibly frustrating. And I mean, Franz Beckenbauer actually said something after the game, which I really agree with. He said, possession doesn't mean anything when your opponents create better chances. We are lucky they only scored one, obviously referencing Real Madrid there. And it was true. Real Madrid could have very conceivably been 3-0 up at half-time. And if that happens, the tie's over. And the reason why it happened was because of Guardiola's insistence of playing a technique and a tactic which doesn't work. And the proof's in the pudding, because it clearly didn't work yesterday. They were lucky in some ways to beat Manchester United, because Man U were comfortable a large part of that game. They took the lead, and then it took a bit of brilliance from a few players, obviously because Bayern Munich's team is just rich with incredible talent, to bail them out of trouble. And I'm hoping that this is the time where football finally gets it, that possession is a means to an end, it's not an end in itself. And the day I see people praise chance creation over possession stats is a day I'll be very, very happy. And I hope this is the beginning of the end for this style of football, because like I just said, possession is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself, and it is incredibly frustrating when you see a team keep 72% of the ball or whatever it was and do nothing with it. It's just incredibly frustrating. I mean, this is a team as well who were so talented playing that pacey manoeuvre game. They're so good at it. They won a Champions League doing it. You'd think they'd have confidence in their ability to go there and play the way which won them a Champions League and won them a treble. But for some reason, Guardiola is insistent in taking them backwards to a style which is less effective. And there's no doubt in my mind that it is less effective. But I think I've spoken enough about that. The last thing I wanted to talk about for the last 5 minutes or so of the video is the loan system in the Premier League, because recently there's been a bit of a groundswell of criticism about the loan system in the Premier League, where certain teams, Everton are a prime example, and my stepdad actually calls them Everloan because he's really frustrated with the fact that they can loan in players like Deulofeu and Lukaku and Barry, 3 players who've been instrumental in their success this season, and nearly qualify for the top 4. I mean, they could still very conceivably qualify for the top 4, which is obviously a huge deal. And if they do that with a lot of players in their team who aren't actually their players, is that right? And obviously a big example in this Champions League semi-final week was Thibaut Courtois, Chelsea player, loaned out to Atletico Madrid for an insane number of years, really. I think it's his 3rd season on loan there. Chances are he's going to be on loan again next season. Is that right? In my opinion, the loan system is a fundamentally good thing, because you get Premier League squads like the Man Cities of this world or the Chelseas, where you're going to have a lot of talented young players who are not going to get a hope of playing in the first team, and the loan system is ideal for getting them experience of actually stepping onto a football pitch. And if you look at players, England players recently like Jack Wilshere. Jack Wilshere benefited a huge amount from going on loan to a lower league, not a lower league side, but a lower table Premier League side, and getting first team experience. I mean, Tom Cleverley went off on loan and did very, very well at Wigan. Unfortunately, it's not gone well for him since he's gone back to Manchester United, but he had that initial experience, and there's been plenty of other examples of players gaining massively from being loaned out. So in that instance, I don't think it's a problem. You've got a lot of people coming out and saying that perhaps teams shouldn't be allowed to loan players to clubs in the same competition, and I think that's personally unworkable, because you get the situation where, for example, what happens if a Champions League team loaned a player to a club in the Europa League, and then that Champions League team finishes 3rd in the Champions League group and now qualifies for the Europa League? Can that player no longer play in that competition? It's just, that for me is an unworkable solution. What I think is a more workable solution is a much stricter limit on who you can loan. So you can only loan one person over the age of, say, let's say 23 for argument's sake, or you could pick whatever age you want there based on negotiations or the endless committees that would be set up to deal with this, which is one of the problems with modern football at the moment. Too committee based, so nothing actually gets achieved. But that would stop the play, just like, for example, Gareth Barry being loaned out. If you want to loan Gareth Barry, that's fine, but then you can't loan another 3 players from Premier League teams to just strengthen your side. And that would enable the loan system to be used, I think what it was is intended for, its intended use, to enable young players and fringe players to play at a competitive level, which is very, very useful. And at the same time, it still preserves the loan system as a very, very useful tool for building your squad. Because a team like Everton, they don't have the budget to go out in the summer and buy 8 players. It doesn't happen. They can't do a Chelsea. So they are relying on the loan system to supplement their squad. And that's basically, it is a squad supplement tool. You can't base your team off the loan system, because you might have one fantastic season, but then if the season after all of a sudden you don't get the players in that you require, you're in a massive trouble. And the good thing with Everton is, if you look at the core of their side, the Leighton Baines, Phil Jagielka, Kevin Morales, Stephen Pienaar, they have a lot of players there who have done very, very well this season, who are their players. They're actual contracted players and not loan players. And the Lukaku, Barry, Deulofeu have been a supplement to that. And I personally think the loan system, it works quite well. You know, the extra little tweak I put in is just to prevent exploitation, sorry. So, under the system I propose, I'd still let Everton do what they've done, because they've loaned a young player in Lukaku, they've loaned another young player from overseas in Deulofeu, and then they've loaned one experienced guy in Gareth Barry. And that for me is not really a problem. You know, the loan system is available to everybody. People are hating on Everton and Roberto Martinez because he's made the best use of a tool which is available for everybody. If you don't want other teams loaning all the good players, go out there and loan them yourself. Everybody knew Lukaku was going to be loaned out. Everybody knew Gareth Barry was going to be loaned out. What teams went in for them? Not many. Everton went in for them. They got them. They've played well. And all of a sudden it's a massive problem. It's just... You've got to grow up. I mean, grow up's probably a little bit of a strong term. But there's so much just needless, incessant bickering in football over things which really aren't a problem. It's like, it's the same for everybody. You got to deal with it. And the loan system shouldn't be scrapped. I've heard some ludicrously over the top solutions to this. It's just, it's there for a good reason. It does a lot of good work, and it is available for everybody. It's completely fair. It's not really based on wages either. If you're a small club, you can loan players who normally you wouldn't have a chance of signing on a permanent deal, just so you can supplement your squad or give a kid a chance. All of these good things. So for me, the loan system's doing very, very well. Possibly needs a tweak, but all of this overkill stuff should be left well alone. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. There's a lot of topics I've covered there, quite a broad array. As always, I'd be interested in hear what you have to say. So if you are interested in any of these topics, leave a comment. I do read all of my comments, so if you leave one down, I'll definitely check it out. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.